You can't always wait on the universe to deliver exactly what you want on a silver platter right to your door. Sometimes you have to get up, go out, and ask for what you want. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm Diamond Davis, a content creator, writer, and strategist, and let's get into it. So I had this realization back in January, and it was because I watched this TikTok video by this girl, and she was talking about her mentor said to do 5 no's a week. And I was like, dang, that is so good. Ask if you're not hearing 5 no's a week, you're not asking for as big of things as you could be asking for. Like, you could be asking for more. If you're always hearing yes, or you're not hearing anything at all because you're not asking, then you're not asking. You're not thinking big enough. You need to think big. And it reminded me of when I went to Create and Cultivate last year. And one of the main things that so many of those founders said, and what they said was to be more shameless. And so I was trying to step into more of my shameless energy in Q4 of last year. And then hearing that challenge in January, it really pushed me. I'm like, okay, I need 5 no's a week. I need to be asking for bigger and more things that I want. And my issue with it was that I kind of felt like if I heard a no, that meant that I wasn't worthy or valuable of anything, or that it said something about who I was if somebody said no. And I realized that it actually doesn't. And asking for what you want is wealthy energy, and it's an abundance mindset, because you know that if you hear no, it doesn't mean anything is inherently wrong with you. It's just feedback. And I thought about, like, if you were in a maze and you went up to, and you like were walking up to a brick wall, and there's a brick wall standing there the way you want it to go, that's not a judgment on you. That doesn't mean anything about you. It just means go another way. So if you hear a no, it doesn't mean you're doomed. It doesn't mean go home. It doesn't mean shut up. It just means go a different way, go left, go right. And you just continue to get that feedback, and it gets you very clear on exactly what is actually meant for you. I also thought about how wealthy people, the way they grow up, a lot of them grow up is they're not told that they can't not do something, and they just ask for whatever they want from anybody because they don't really care. And then, I think about how you'll see those wealthy people at, I don't know, DJing somewhere. People will be like, this guy sucks. And it's like, well, he just asked. And so why not? I mean, he just asked. And so they just gave it to him. And that usually will be just enough to get them in the door. And then they have 6 months or 2 years of that kind of stuff of just asking for what they want, and sometimes getting it and sometimes not. And then next thing you know, they're like one of the top DJs in the nation or something like that. But it starts with not being ashamed of asking for things or thinking that has to mean something negative. One of my mentors, and I say this all the time, said that we want to try to reach net neutrality on basically everything in life. And so when you hear no, that immediately feels like something scary, that immediately feels like something negative, you have to shift out of that, because it keeps you as a slave to that. It keeps you in service of that thing instead of that thing being in service to you. And so now you're at the whim of your fears or your worries of somebody saying no and what that would mean. But you can't be. And then this was a really big thing for me, because we're not afraid. Well, most of us, we're not afraid to ask God or the universe for what we want. We'll tell God, we'll yap to him like, yeah, God, and I want the $1 million home, and I want the Porsche, and I want the 6-figure business monthly, and all of that. But when it comes to asking in the 3D for the opportunities, the experiences that would actually get us there, we go quiet, because we want God to just give it to us without us having to ask. Well, sometimes he will just give it to us, but other times, and this is what I realized, sometimes the path of least resistance is actually us just asking for it. So, if I think about me with brand deals, and I did a lot of pitching last month just because I was like, I need to pitch more. Like, it shouldn't be this thing that I'm scared about. But I thought about how, in one way, if I tell God, I want a partnership with Delta, That's what I want. I want to work with Delta. I want a brand deal with Delta. So now the universe, and not that this is a big thing or it's super difficult or it's, hard for the universe to do, but now I've got to be, my account has to be put on the page of somebody that works at Delta or for one of their marketing agencies that they work with. And then they've got to have the right campaign. Somebody's got to come up with the right campaign that they can see me being a fit for. And then, they've got to align that. And then they've got to put me to the board. And then maybe that person on the board's got to say yay or nay. And it's all these other pieces, when sometimes the easiest way for us to get what we want is to ask for me to send Delta a DM or to send an email to the Delta influencer email and saying, hey, y'all, I want to work with y'all. I have a great idea, or not even have a great idea. Like, I want to work with y'all. What's up? And then for God to tap that person that's reading the email to say, yes, yes, we do want to work with her. You see how much easier that is? And not to say that it's like something that's super difficult for the universe to do, but it's just path of least resistance. And sometimes the fastest way, the quickest way is for us to just ask ourselves. And I think there really was a season, and I'm sure a lot of us have those seasons where it's like God is just giving us a lot of things and we're not having to ask anybody, and you just going to God about it of like, God, I want this, I want that. I want to experience this. And he just gives it to us, and we don't have to ask anybody in the 3D. We don't have to talk about it out loud. But then there becomes a time when God is like, okay, I've shown you that you can have whatever you want. I've shown you your power. Now it is time for you to feel comfortable and confident to use your voice and to take action and go and get what you want and take an aligned action. Take the first step and let me do the rest. It also builds another level of worthiness and confidence and belief in yourself and in the universe, because if you are too afraid to speak what you want out loud or to ask who you should ask, he puts you in a room and you're afraid to ask or speak up, like you're not really that confident in it. You're not really that trusting of the universe or of yourself. So what does that say? And I think that's more of what it really was, of why I needed to have that confidence added of being comfortable to ask directly for what I want from whoever I want when God puts me in the room. It makes me think about that story that I always heard growing up in church, when it was like there was like a hurricane and the guy was waiting on God to come save him, and like a boat came by and a helicopter came by and all these things. He's like, no, I'm waiting on God. And then he died in the flood. He got to heaven. He was like, God, what happened? Where were you? He said, I said the boat. I said the helicopter, and you turned all of it down. Sorry, my camera was dying. But anyways, yeah, so sometimes the path of least resistance is just for us to ask for what we want. Send that email, reach out to that brand, go up to that person. I remember when I was at Create and Cultivate, and it was like in between sessions, and there was like, anybody who wants to get up here and share your brand and share your business or whatever, get up here. And I was there with my friend Amber, and she went up there because that's just who she is. She's so bold. She's Aries. She's going to always put herself out there and ask for what she wants. And I sat there and I was like, I should have went up there. And I was already starting to hear the things about being shameless, but I just couldn't and didn't. And I took that as a lesson that day of just like to show me of where I still needed to grow in my confidence of putting myself out there. So yeah, no is just navigation. It's not something that defines who you are or defines your worth. It just helps to guide you. And what I realize is that self-permission is all that matters over actually being chosen. And when we give ourselves that permission, we align ourselves with the things that are actually meant for us. And it doesn't matter if we are chosen for a certain thing or not, because if we're not chosen, then it means it wasn't for us. And as somebody that had issues with people pleasing and validation, of course, I always wanted to be picked. And if I wasn't picked, it's giving pick me. If I wasn't picked, then I thought it meant something when it really didn't. It just meant that it wasn't for me. One of the examples that I used to talk about when I was first starting to understand this concept of being able to ask for what I want and being told no was I thought about I live in Michigan. You guys may have heard of Dearborn. It's like the number one Arab community in America. But anyways, I was thinking like if I reached out to a hijab brand, like they sell hijabs, and I was like, hey, I'd love to work with you guys. And they said no. Is that really a judgment that my content isn't good? Is it really a judgment on me as a person? Or is it just that it's not quite aligned? I don't wear a hijab. So is it really a fit? It's not. It's not. And there are things that it may be very obvious like that. Like I may not be aligned with a hijab brand. And there may be other brands that I've wanted to work with. And maybe I pitched them and they didn't want to work with me. But I don't know the backstory of why it's really not aligned or why it's not the time. But I just have to trust that anything that is for me, I will actually get and experience. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about today. And I would say, in summary, just don't be afraid to ask for what you want. And sometimes that's just the path of least resistance. And instead of sitting around waiting on God to just deliver it to you at your front door, just go and ask for it. And yeah, you'll learn a lot along the way, and it'll build your confidence and resilience to it. And you'll ask anybody at any time, anywhere for whatever you want, and you won't care what they say about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.